Welcome back to Wishwell Farms, everybody. It is that time of year again. Our outdoor vegetable harvest season is just about wrapped up, and now it is time to finish getting all of our greenhouses cleaned out and winterized and getting them ready for another growing season, which starts in late winter for us. As you can see, it is a disastrous mess in here. Fortunately, all of the plants have been removed, which was in a prior video about one of the worst jobs that we have to do on the farm. That may have been the worst job, but I think the job we're getting ready to start on today might be my least favorite job, if that makes sense. Because this is time consuming and it's just not enjoyable. So let me show you what we got going on in here today. So the very first thing we're going to be doing is pulling out these drippers from the buckets and twisting out the rockwool cube. This was the starter cubes, where you can see the little round cube in here in the center of this big block. That was our starter rockwool cube for our hydroponic tomatoes. Then they get placed into these bigger cubes, and then when they're an 8 to 10 inch tall transplant, they get brought in here and set into the Dutch Beto buckets that are full of perlite. So these cubes are sometimes called stone wool, but most often it's called rock wool. So we will be ripping out all these cubes and removing them from the buckets. These will be going in the dumpster. And then we'll have all of these buckets that just have perlite left in them. And this is the year we have to dump them. So we use our perlite for 2 growing seasons. We have completed 2 full growing seasons with this perlite. So we're going to be carrying all these buckets out the back door, putting them on a flatbed wagon, taking them out in the field and dumping them. And then we'll just disc it into the soil. You'll hardly even notice it's there because it's really not that much once you spread it around. And then we're gonna sweep up, rake up, pull weeds. Everything will be removed out of this greenhouse. We'll get it nice and spick and span and clean, sterilized and ready for another growing season. And then we'll bring all the buckets back in and line them back up and get them filled with new, fresh perlite, and it'll be ready for tomato growing season 2026. But before we get started on all of this, we're gonna head out to the field for our final tomato harvest of 2025. Today is October 6th. It's hard to believe that the end of the season is already here. But there's a bunch of rain moving in, possibly tomorrow, and I don't want to risk having more tomatoes crack and split on us. So we're gonna go get our 15 to 20 boxes that we need to get us through this weekend's farmers markets, and then we'll be back in here to start this massive cleanup job. All right, we're out here on our tomato patch. This is planting number 2. We just have 2 rows, and actually it turns into 1 row right here, back where Gavin is. We ran out of plants on this final 100 feet of row. Emma's been picking tomatoes for the last 5 months. Emma, how does it feel to know that this is probably the final day of picking tomatoes?
Sad.
Bittersweet, maybe?
Yeah.
I know Gavin's happy down there that tomato season's over. All right. They already got 5 full boxes on the Ranger. We only need like 10 more. And then we're gonna move into cleaning up the greenhouse.
Whatever variety this is.
Those are nice.
Yeah, are better.
One of them is Skyway 673 and one of them might be STM 2255, which were our 2 biggest. Yeah, those are beautiful. So all the tomatoes that were green out here last week have turned. I mean, there's still some green, but not much. Some of you are probably wondering, why in the world are we going to make this our last tomato pick when we still have more tomatoes out here that we could harvest? Because this Saturday, October 11th, is our final farmers market day of the season at Clintonville and Worthington, which is around Columbus, Ohio. And some years in the past, we have gone 1 more week. So that would be October 18th, but we are not gonna have anything left. Corn will be done, green beans are already done. We're gonna be out of winter squash. Cucumbers are done. We just picked the last of our zucchini this morning. Peppers are almost done. There's a chance of frost possibly next week. We're gonna get dipped down into the mid to upper 30s, maybe even this week. So we don't have anything to sell. That's why we quit going to farmers markets. Now, for many, many years, I did go all the way through October and even into November. I remember one year we even went to Thanksgiving. But I grew a lot more late season, fall type crops back then. I had more winter squash, more cauliflower, broccoli, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, all those things, onions. No potatoes. I've never grown potatoes other than just a little trial that I did like 20 years ago. We just had more items to take that would get us through that late season. You know, all the pumpkins and gourds and other funky, weird winter squashes. You know, we had all that stuff and we could still fill up our stand. But now that I don't grow pumpkins and fall ornamentals anymore, I don't really have anything to fill up our stand with. So when produce season is wrapping up here, you know, the normal summer vegetables are wrapping up, that's when we wrap up our season. That gives me a little extra time to enjoy some of my favorite pastimes like backpacking and RV camping while the leaves are changing, and be available to help my brother Joel harvest some soybeans and field corn. This time of year, we just like to direct pack our tomatoes. So we pick them and pack them straight from the plant to the box. Man, Emma's got a whopper. It's almost as big as a softball. Last week, we were finding a lot of split tomatoes from the inch of rain that we got. Oh, it's probably been 10 days ago, maybe almost 2 weeks now. But green tomatoes typically won't split or crack. So all the green tomatoes that were out here last week that we were unable to pick have turned colors now because it's been sunny and low to mid 80s for like a week now. So it brought on all these late tomatoes really nice and they look beautiful. And I just found some spider mites. Wow. I know the camera's not going to pick this up, but there's like some webbing right there and it's just covered in spider mites. I don't see that very often in the field tomatoes. And they don't look like two spotted spider mites. Typically on a two spotted spider mite, you see a little black dot on them. These kind of look like they're all the same color as the tomato. Spider mites typically come out when it's hot and dry. If you get normal rains out in the field, usually spider mites aren't a problem. More so in a greenhouse. Man, whatever variety this is, they are huge. There goes Joel, out to start another day of harvesting soybeans. Every now and then I'll put some lighter looking tomatoes in there because today's Monday. They're going to have 5 days to turn before we sell them. And some customers like getting some less ripe tomatoes so they can let them sit on their counter for a couple days or a week after the market. You know, we're passing up a lot of these little ones. We're trying to get mainly mediums and larges, and a lot of these have, you know, rotten spots on them or blemishes. A lot of them would probably be fine for canners, but we're just out to get our number ones today. Oh, there's a whopper.
You could probably fill the rest of your box, Gavin, with giant.
That's it. We got our boxes for this Saturday. All right, we're heading back up to the greenhouse to start on the cleanup process. How are the cubes coming out?
Pretty easy.
Nice.
Tough ones, but
nice. Yeah, that's great. So we're just twisting them and throwing them in the wheelbarrow. Looks like we're gonna get a full wheelbarrow per row, maybe 1.5, and then we'll take them out and throw them in the dumpster. Rock wool will not burn. I've tried it. Some of it disappears. Obviously the plastic wrapper does, and I don't want to bury it. So unfortunately it has to go to the landfill. So one of the downsides of hydroponic farming this way with Dutch Beto buckets and rock wool cubes. The perlite, like I said earlier, we just dump it in the field, disc it in, and you don't even know it's there. It's really a very small amount once it's spread out in the field. And it can be a good soil amendment actually. So after we get the cubes all ripped off, you know, we got to get all these dripper stakes removed. And then we're ready to carry the buckets out to the flatbed wagon. This greenhouse is usually the easiest to be able to rip those cubes out because it has been dead the longest. We terminated this greenhouse back in early August. That's when I shut the water off and the plants start dying. You know, they've run their course. We harvested all the good tomatoes we wanted off of the plants. And we do that on purpose or intentionally because we're ready to move into our field production. And we don't want to mix hydroponic and field tomatoes together, and I just can't sell that many. The field tomatoes always yield really well for us, and that's what all of our customers want once you get to mid-August. They want an outdoor soil-grown tomato. But during May, June, and July, these are in really super high demand, and they look great, and we get a great production off them while we're waiting for our field tomatoes to ripen. So what I was getting at is, since these were terminated earlier than all the other greenhouses, they've had more time for the roots to dry out and kind of disintegrate or become brittle and easier to rip those cubes off. If we had green plants in here and we had just hauled them out of the greenhouse like this week, these cubes would be anchored into these buckets so bad we wouldn't be able to twist them off. And we've had to actually saw them before with a serrated knife. It's not fun. So fortunately, this has turned out to be a fairly easy job so far. I think I hear Joel coming to do my field right here. It's not actually my field. This is one of my dad's fields, but for the last 25 years, I have rented this field for my vegetables. But this year we put soybeans in it. There he is. It's kind of a tough field to plant and to combine because it's just a bunch of small hodgepodge sections. If you're wondering about these plants right here, those are the 400 plants that came out of our little house right there. We'll be moving into that one probably next week. It'll be interesting to see how this field yields. perfect timing for him to get this harvested, because now we can go dump our perlite out there, right behind the combine. If you guys are interested in seeing more of the soybean harvest, I'll put a couple links down below in the description for you. I think 2 videos back, maybe 3 videos back, I actually did a ride along with Joel, an entire video of harvesting soybeans, and we did a live stream that same day, so check those out. Getting it turned around so we can feel the other side. Grabbing our final few buckets here. We used a wheelbarrow on the ones way back here. I could get about a dozen in a wheelbarrow. All the other ones we just grabbed by hand, 4 at a time. Not too bad. It only took us like 20 minutes to get all those out. So this is what the greenhouse looks like now, with all the buckets removed. So now we're going to take those buckets out into the field and get them dumped, and then we'll just stack them in the barn until we're ready to bring them back in here. The next job in here is to get all the lines lifted up off the ground. I'm going to put a nail in each one of these posts. I don't know why I never did this before. To get these lines up off the ground, out of the way. It'll make sweeping and raking so much easier. And I still need to do a final flush on these lines. I actually do like 5 or 6 flushes on these lines, and I still get plug drippers. So if any of you know some secret magical product that I can inject through these lines or pressurize through these lines and break up any mineral and fertilizer deposits, let me know in the comments. But I did an initial flush last week, and you wouldn't believe the amount of goop that came out the end. And then this week, probably today or tomorrow, I'll flush them again until I see clean water come out again, because there'll be some more stuff come out. Then I'll cap off the ends, pressurize the system, and force water with oxidate in it. Oxidate is hydrogen dioxide. It's almost like hydrogen peroxide. And then I'll let it soak for a couple days. Sorry about all the noise. Joel's still out here combining. Right behind me. We'll let them soak for a couple days with that oxidate in here, and then I'll flush it out one more time. So there's like 4 flushes just at the end of the season before winter. And then next spring, or next winter, late winter, almost spring, when we're ready to fire this up in here again, I will do an initial flush to make sure all the goop's out, because there's always deposits and residue that somehow show up in the system, and we got to get all that out. And then I'll pressurize it again with oxidate, let it set for a couple days, and then we'll come in here and replace any drippers that are plugged, and hopefully it's a very small amount, like 5 or 10%. I see Joel's wife and kids are hopping in the combine for a ride. All right, I'm gonna take this wagon right over here. We got some wind coming out of the south right now, right in my face, and we don't want the perlite to get in our eyes. So we're gonna drive over here. I'll put the sides down that greenhouse to kind of block the wind, and we're gonna start dumping right here. Do you want to go help? Do you want to go help, Tassie? Okay, let's go. Let's go find Gavin and Emma. All right, we're dumping buckets of perlite now. I'll show you how we do this. So they have a lot of roots in them, especially after 2 seasons worth of tomato growth. Just put the bucket on the ground, tap it out. There is the Beto bucket full of perlite and roots. You can see all those roots. And this year we're finding that the little elbow is staying in, it's kind of locked in. This little 2-part piece of plastic. This goes in the bottom of the bucket. So this is here to keep the perlite from plugging the drain port. So this part back here doesn't quite touch the bottom. It's like a 1/4 inch off of the bottom of the bucket. And then this part just pops down in there. We'll make sure it's in good and tight. And now that is ready for refilling with fresh perlite for the 2026 season. Normally all those little elbows don't come out of the buckets, but I think they are this year is because there's so much root mass down in there. They're kind of held in by the roots and they're slipping right off the bottom of the bucket. So it definitely slows down the process, but it is what it is. You got to watch your eyes when you're working with perlite. You do not want to get this stuff in your eyes. You can scratch your eyeball really easy. I've had to go to the eye doctor before to get a little piece of this stuff out of my eye. All right, I better put Tassie back inside. I just don't trust her nose. Her nose will lead her astray and she will end up missing. I don't feel like babysitting you all morning, Tassie. Let's go inside. Let's go. All right, it's now the next day and we're gonna finish up cleaning the inside of this greenhouse. The first thing we're doing is putting these lines up off the ground about 3 feet. It'll make it so much easier to sweep and rake and clean all the debris up off the floor. So I'm gonna go get my leaf blower right now and I'm gonna try to blow off these blue insulation board that we have on the ground here. It's really difficult to sweep and rake all that debris out, so we'll just use the leaf blower. We'll clean those off first and then we'll sweep up everything in the aisleways. All right, we're making some really good progress out here. We have almost the entire greenhouse floor swept up into piles. Now Gavin is loading the piles into the wheelbarrow so we can dump them out in the field. And next we'll be bringing the buckets back in, putting them back in place. And then the final thing I got to do in here is flush the lines again 2 more times. And this greenhouse will be ready for new fresh perlite next February. So getting close to having this one knocked out and then we can move on to our other 4 greenhouses. So we got a long way to go. Okay, perfectly clean and ready to replace the buckets back in the rows. I just brought up the wagon full of buckets out back and Gavin and Emma are loading them up into wheelbarrows to bring them in. And we just got to pop them into place where these little holes are on the drain tube. So here we have a Dutch Beto bucket and we want to follow the same pattern as last year. I can tell there was a bucket here because there's a little clean spot. So they alternate. This one will be on this side, the next one will be on that side, so on and so forth all the way down. And we got to follow that pattern, otherwise if we mess it up, will have a bucket that goes here and it can't fit because there's a post here. So you can see where they were from last year. We just got to follow that pattern. So the bottom of these Dutch Beto buckets has a little reservoir that holds about a ½ inch of water. That way the plants never entirely dry out. Their roots always have access to water. So we just bring it in here, and there's a little nipple on the bottom of the bucket that goes right in that hole. Just like that. And then this irrigation line will lay right across the top of the buckets. So this greenhouse holds 307 buckets, I believe, which is 615 plants. I'm gonna set you up on time lapse so you can see us replace all these buckets very quickly. All right, there it is, the finished product. Everything has been cleaned and put back into position, ready for perlite later this winter and a final flush through all the irrigation lines. This is definitely one of those jobs on a farm that I don't really enjoy doing, but boy is it satisfying when it's complete. If you are interested in seeing what this greenhouse looks like in full production, check out this video right here. This is where we're gonna wrap this one up today, folks. As always, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it, and I will see you all again next time down on the farm.